Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus A330 pilot and welcome to our first flight in the Aerosoft Airbus A330. Before we start this video, let me add a quick personal note. If it wasn't for Aerosoft, I would not be an airline pilot today. Right after school, Aerosoft hired me into, amongst others, their Airbus teams. And I used to work on the Aerosoft Airbus for several years, amongst other tasks that I had in the company. The money that I earned back then enabled me to pay for my airline pilot training, and if it wasn't for this wonderful opportunity that I'm really thankful for, I would never have been able to become an airline pilot and pay that sum of money required to become a pilot in the first place. Therefore, I'm really thankful for Aerosoft to give me that opportunity. But since I also worked on the Aerosoft Airbuses quite a bit during that time, and since I can somewhat say that the Aerosoft Airbuses earned me the money to become an airline pilot, I kinda feel connected to that series. I do see the Aerosoft A330 for Microsoft Flight Simulator to be the culmination of that series, so this video is probably the hardest one that I had to do on my channel ever. Now, many of you are probably coming to this video after you have already seen or read some content about the Aerosoft A330, and you will therefore have a certain expectation to this video, also seeing the background of this YouTube channel and how I've rated add-ons in the past. This video is going to be different. Since I basically owe my pilot's license to the opportunities Aerosoft have given me, I will try and approach this as positive as possible, and I will try to keep this as good as possible. Nonetheless, I will comment on pretty much anything I notice during the flight, but I will try to remain at a positive spirit here and not to rage quit. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start our first flight in the Aerosoft A330. And we're starting right here in the virtual cockpit, and this is what it looks like. Overall, typical Aerosoft modeling, and I have to say that the flight deck overall looks very good, even though I had some trouble trying to find the correct point of view. Now, in the real Airbus, you do position your point of view somewhat upwards so that you can just about look on the top of the glare shield, but if I do that in the Aerosoft one, then the top of the display is significantly cut off to an extent where the top of the EPR gauge is not even readable anymore, which suggests to me that there has to be some sort of problems with the geometry in this model. Overall, I'm unable to find the correct point of view that I have in the real aircraft in this one. So let's just go and take the standard Aerosoft point of view here, noting that this is quite a bit too low for where it should actually be. Now, let's go ahead and have a look into the electronic flight bag next. So the Aerosoft EFB has a couple of different possibilities for us. We can start right on top over here with the options, and in here you can enter stuff like your SimBrief ID, or you can select, for example, the tablet themes, light or dark, and stuff like this. On the aircraft menu we have a couple options like altimeter synchronization, which is a good thing to have, IRS alignment time, and a couple of further options down here in regards to the display, so automatic takeoff pitch trim and so on. Last but not least, we have the hardware calibration, which you can use to calibrate your throttles to a custom level, which we are going to do today over here. So basically we have our idle thrust, then we have our climb, MCT and toga, which I've set up just prior to the start of this video. That out of the way, we do have the SimBrief menu on the top left, and using those three dots we can access the SimBrief menu and collect a lot of information like viewing our flight plan, seeing the weather information and that kind of stuff. Now, next up we have the payload and performance pages, which we are going to go over in a few moments as we're about to load up the aircraft. We have our ground handling, where we can control many options like the passenger doors, the jetways, catering vehicles, and so on. And then we have our Navigraph charts, which we can use over here. And on top of Navigraph charts, we also have the ability to view the Aerosoft Navdata Pro charts in here as well. So, with that good stuff out of the way, last but not least, we do have our OpenStreetMaps chart over here, which can be rather nice for, you know, zooming in, having a moving map to a certain extent, but unfortunately not with any actual aviation maps down there. So, that good stuff now done, let's go ahead and start powering our aircraft up. So we start with the basic checks, and that's the engine master switch is off, engine start switch in norm. The weather radar is off and off, landing gear lever down, the wiper selectors are off, and since the aircraft has not been powered for a while, we have to check the battery voltage. Now, in the real plane, you would have the battery voltage window right up here, even before you turn the power on. Unfortunately, in the Aerosoft, this is blank, so we can't do this check. So I am just going to turn the batteries on over here, like that, without actually having checked that battery. Now the airplane does take a little while to initiate over here. While it's doing that, we might just go down here to our ground power unit, and for some reason it doesn't really want to connect that. Maybe if we set the park and brake, maybe that's gonna help it. Nope, not really. Okay, so I can't connect the ground power unit down here. But well, that shall not be too much of a problem. As soon as the ECAM is powered up, we're going to do the APU fire test, and then we can start up the APU so that we can get some power. So, APU fire test is looking okay. Then let's go ahead and start the APU, master switch on, APU starter on, and we should be able to view the actual APU indications by pressing and holding the APU button. And indeed, this brings up the APU ECAM page so that we can monitor the startup process as it commences. Now the flap is open and the APU starts to run up. Let's give it a little while, and as soon as the APU generator actually comes online, we are going to be able to power the airplane up completely. Well, actually that is gonna happen automatically. Now, as we're waiting for this, a first note over here, for some reason we do get a flight director showing with some very weird modes over here, but as long as the IRS is not aligned, the flight director basically shouldn't come online at all. So that should be impossible down there. So let's go ahead and switch that flight director off. Alright, so the aircraft is powering up now. We do have 11.7 tons of fuel on board down here. And while we are waiting for our boarding and loading to commence, let's go ahead and download the SimBrief fuel values down here. As you can see, we need 10,510 kilos. I'm just going to load a little bit more. Let's make it 12,000 over here so that we have a little bit of room to play. I'm going to go for an instant fuel loading and an instant boarding down here. So let's go ahead and complete the two. Alright, and here we go. So the aircraft is now powered, and let's go ahead and turn on the APU bleed. You will notice that the sounds, well, do change in here. They're not really supposed to. The APU bleed really doesn't make that much of a difference in the A330 cockpit. But okay, looks like Aerosoft have modeled that a little bit too loud. Alright then, let's go ahead and go over the rest of our setup. So the next thing for us to do is to initialize the ACAS system. So let's go down to the ATSU. Unfortunately, everything is grayed out, not implemented. Alright, so with that out of the way, I do suppose the only thing we can do down here right now is to go to data, and then aircraft status, A330 300C, Pratt engines, current database. Then we can go on to the init page, press the init request so that the flight plan does start to uplink, and then we'll just have to keep it at that point for now. So, next up, let's go over the rest of our flight deck. The lights are set appropriately, basically all off at the moment. Well, you should be able to read the comm quite a bit better, so we gotta turn a bit of lights on here. 1228 and 1 to 1.5 going into the radios. And then we can switch that active, monitor both of them. Let's bring that up, and well, here we go. Okay, so that's our basic power up complete. Next up, let's check the oxygen. 1810 psi. Hydraulic quantities are looking good, and the engine oil quantities are pretty full, but that is okay for us. So, flaps are up and in agreement with the lever, the ground spoilers are retracted. Then we can release our park and brake and check our alternate brake systems. So let's apply brakes down here. As you can see, the pressure increases, wonderful, and park and brake is set again. Now the accumulator pressure has depleted quite a bit, but that is actually realistic for the Airbus A330. So in order to charge that, we can turn on the blue electric pump, like this, and then the hydraulic system is going to power up, and that is going to charge the accumulator in a few moments. Now for some reason okay, here we are on the hydraulic page. That was strange, I pressed that button several times to get there. Okay, so the accu pressure is now charged. Let's go ahead and turn that off again. Basically, don't run those electric pumps for too long. They can overheat pretty quickly and pretty easily. Now, from here on, I really have no idea why the IRSs are in the nav position in the default panel state. They really are not supposed to be. So let's go ahead, turn them off, give it a little while, and as soon as the IRSs have shut down, let's turn them back on again to start the alignment process. So, 1, 2, and 3. Also, let's turn the annunciator lights to bright so that we can actually see something. And that concludes our preliminary cockpit preparation here. I have to admit, I had to skip over quite a couple of things since the normal workflow was just completely interrupted because of missing features such as, for example, the missing ACAS simulation. So, with that done, let's go over our flight deck setup. Flight recorder ground control on, oxygen crew supply on, evacuation switch on captain, APU fire test is done, IRSs are in align mode. So, strobe and nav and logo light switches on the 1 position, fueling is complete, so seatbelts are coming on. And then we can move further up over here. Next up we are gonna check the batteries, so we turn them all 3 off, all 3 on again. And then we go to the electrical DC page. And we can see that the batteries are actually charging down there, which is exactly what they are supposed to do right now. Okay, up to the fuel pumps. We make sure to turn the main pumps on before the standby pump, so that the standby pump doesn't start to run automatically. Engine fire test, looking good, and going over the right-hand side over here. No idea why the cabin fans are off. They are definitely not supposed to be. Okay, so PA. Normally I would pull this out, but looks like there are no click spots up here on the audio control panel. Okay, if that's what it is, then that's what it is. Alright, let's move down then. Q&H, I'll just press B in order to set that quickly. And then we can move down here. Well, I would have checked the date right now, but there is no click spot over here, so I can't really do that. The DCDUs would be turned on, but they're inoperative in the simulation at the moment. And the anti-skid switch is on. Then let's go down to the pedestal. The weather radar is basically uncalibrated. Weather and turbulence is selected. Then we can go over to the other side. Transponder is on number 1. Above is selected. Squawk 2000 is in there. That is good. Okay, then let's go to our MCDU. And this is where things start getting complicated now. So, alternate Nuremberg. Passenger numbers we'll leave empty until we have received the final load sheet. Cost index 10, and our cruise flight level is going to be 310. Alright, onto the flight plan. Düsseldorf, departure, runway 23 left with a Doden 9 Tango departure. And then into Munich, arrival for an ILS 08 left. And for the approach via, we're going to select the Rokiel. Well, I would have selected the Rokiel 08 transition. Do they have that listed under the stars then? Nope, they don't. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll just take the Rokiel transition and that's it. Not exactly how I would expect this to go. Oh, that displays Rokiel 08. That's interesting. Of course, that should have shown in the approach vias as well. That is the first FMS bug we found down here. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab ourselves the Navigraph charts so that we can cross-check our SID. Now, enter the airport name, Echo Delta Delta Lima, Düsseldorf. Here we go. So we'll take the departure chart and let's find those ANAV charts. Here we go, Doden departure. That's it. And the SID basically goes straight ahead to Delta Lima 239er, left turn Delta Lima 241. Let's go ahead and have a look at that in the plan mode, which should work before the IRS has finished aligning. But well, then we're just going to check it down here. So we have 239er, 241, then we have Delta Lima 242 above level 150, Elbal, Betzo, and Doden above flight level 250. And that's indeed what we have down here. So next up I would go to the secondary flight plan to create the engine out routing. Unfortunately that's completely inoperative and not simulated. To be fair to Aerosoft, that is mentioned on the product page, so you would know that before your purchase. Well, the next thing then is to go to the fix info page. Unfortunately that is not simulated either. Well, then we can go on with the route data, but the pilot's route function is not implemented either. Okay, well, with all of those inoperative, the only thing we can do is to go RADNAV, nothing, then we can enter our departure runway in the progress page, and then onto the performance initialization. Let's go ahead and enter our weights over here. So we've got a planned zero fuel weight of 157.2. So we got 157.2, and in the absence of knowing a CG, we are just going to enter 25, and the block fuel 12 tons, which is basically what we have loaded down here as well. Then we go on to the other side and enter the route reserve. So we have an alternate fuel of 2.7. Not allowed. Wonderful. Final reserve fuel is 2.3. Not allowed. Beautiful. And the reserves 0.5, or the contingency. Not allowed. Wonderful. Well, let's try and change the taxi fuel. 0.5. Wow, that works. I'm impressed. Okay, let's go on to the takeoff performance then. And let's go ahead and start calculating for a bit. So, takeoff performance. We are going to depart from Echo Delta Delta Lima, runway 23 left. Takeoff run available will be shortened 2,500, as I'm not going to do the special backtrack. But I'm just going to download the winds automatically. It's a dry runway, and we'll just take the default weights over. Okay, let's hit calculate. And we end up with a config 1 plus F takeoff, up trim 4.8. Well, let me just change that. On the 300s, my airline does want to use flaps config 2 for tail strike avoidance. So that's flaps 2, up trim 4.8 at 40 degrees flex. So 2, flex 40, format error. Why is that? Flex 40. I do have a bad feeling here. Let's try 40. On the A330, you have to enter an F before the flex temperature. What does this suggest? They've probably copied and pasted the A320 FMC. Okay, let's continue. So, speeds 129, 129, 133. Alright, reduction in acceleration 1000 above the field, engine out acceleration, we'll make that 1500 above the field, and then we can use the climb to derate, which should be on the top right of the climb page. So over here you should be able to enter D2 for the climb thrust D rate. Looks like, once again, the climb page resembles the A320 and not the A330. Beautiful. Okay, in any case, seeing that we had to omit approximately 50% of the FMS setup, I tend to say our FMS setup is completed down here right now. Initial climb is going to be 5,000 feet. And the flight directors can come on with VOR selected on both sides. Alright, and why did it go to vertical speed mode? Don't do that. You go to managed and you go to managed. And that should have happened automatically. And I have no clue why the flight director is indicating that strange, but, well, looks like we'll have to leave it at that. Okay, GPS primary. And here we go. Okay, well, that is a rather simplistic flight deck setup, let's call it like that. And I tend to say then we are going to continue with our departure briefing up next. So, I tend to say it's up for the pilot monitoring to start the briefing. So, Düsseldorf runway 23 left, Doden 9 Tango departure, climbing 5,000 feet, MSA, the highest is 2,800 feet on the SID, and we did not take any extra fuel. Alright, that sounds good. Then, our taxi is fairly straightforward, I don't see any hotspots there. Stop margin for rejected takeoff is not very much. Engine outset straight out to 6 DME from Düsseldorf, then a right-hand turn inbound to Lima NDB. We can come back immediately if we have to, we are below the maximum landing weight, and I don't have any specials or non-standards. Do you see any threats for our departure? No? Beautiful, so that is our briefing complete. Let's do the cockpit preparation checklist, please. Gear pins and covers, removed. Fuel quantity. Hello? 11,940 kilos balanced. Seatbelts on, ADRs. Nav, barrel ref, QNH 1003. Cockpit preparation checklist complete. Okay, well, that's our first setup on the aircraft. I do suggest we are gonna go ahead and remove all that ground equipment now. Close the door, and then we are going to order the GSX pushback, please. Okay. Well, that's a nice shortcut to the charts. I do have to say, that is pretty nice. Even though I don't know why we have the chart twice in here, but suppose once is gonna be just fine. Well, close that, please. And let's take a ground chart here. We'll take the airport chart and the parking stand charts. What is this? Interesting. Certainly not a chart. No further comment on that, huh? Okay, anyway, we'll leave it at that. I still don't know what's going on with that ground power unit down there. If you go outside, there is no ground power unit down there. Let's see about GSX. Prepare for pushback and departure, please. Oh, it's actually doing that already. Okay. Alright, well, so that is our initial flight deck preparation completed. So let's assume we just received the load sheet, and we have 284 passengers on board. So that's 284. Then our zero fuel weight is 157.2. And looking up here, we have our center of gravity for the zero fuel weight, 26.7. So 157.2 / 26.7. Here we go, and this gives us a resultant trim of up 4.8. Alright, here we go. Takeoff shift will take 500 meters. This should generate a message, check takeoff data, but looks like it didn't. Okay, well, that is going to be fine for us. In that case, we're about ready to go, so ground from flight deck. Go ahead. So please confirm doors and hatches closed, ground equipment removed, and the bypass pin is installed, and the aircraft is prepared for pushback. That's all confirmed, Captain. Okay, thanks. We are cleared for push. And you can make that facing west on Yankee. The park and brake is set. Roger, release park and brakes. Brakes released. Roger, starting the push, stand by for engine start. Before start checklist. Park and brake, released, takeoff speeds and thrust. V1, 129, VR 129, V2, 133, flex 40. Windows. Closed, and the bacon is on and tasty before start checklist complete. So, on the A330 we start the engines in the sequence 1, then 2, so it's engine number 1 first. And the background for that is that the backup brake system is connected to the respective hydraulic system. You can see that rather nicely if you go onto the hydraulic page over here. So the green system is powered by both engines, number 1 and number 2. And then you have the blue and the yellow systems. The blue one being powered by number 1, the yellow being powered by number 2, and the blue one is connected to the alternate brakes. Okay, so we're about ready to go. Let's go ahead and start the engines. Why can't I get rid of that ecam message? Here we go, that's better. Okay, engine 1 start. Okay, pushback complete, set park and brake. Park and brake set, and did the generator just come on at 24%? I like AC. Yeah! Okay, the engine hasn't even remotely started yet and the generator comes online already. Well, well, well. So, that engine start seems to take rather long. Waiting for the avail light, and then we're gonna start engine number 2. Okay, engine 2 start. By the way, lovely to hear that that sound of the engine start levers is still the same that it used to be on the Airbuses that I worked on 12 years ago. The relationship between N2 and N1 seems rather odd over here. At 19% N2, you definitely wouldn't get 5% N1 yet. Normally it introduces the fuel and then it takes a couple moments before the EGT goes up, so it's something they are hopefully going to improve with the future update. Okay, but overall the engine start does look quite alright to me. At least in terms of how it's progressing. So, quick look outside. There is the ramp agent and she's going away. She is holding a pin. That looks just about fine. Okay, here we go. So the plane should have trimmed itself automatically, but let's see, CG 25.7, and that is 25.7, perfect. The auto trim feature is really nice, even though it only works in about half of the cases. But when it works, it is really nice. Okay, so the hand signal is seen. After start checklist, please. Anti-ice, off, ecam status, checked, pitch trim, 25.7%. Rudder trim, Neutral. After start checklist complete. Okay, we're clear on the left side, and we are clear on the right side. Let's go for taxi. So the A330 has a huge amount of idle thrust available. It easily goes up to 30 knots without you having to do anything. But looks like this one just stays stationary. Let's add a tiny bit of breakaway thrust to get it moving. Okay, brake check. Pressure 0. What are the flaps doing? What is this? They've just retracted on their own. And indeed the flaps are up. But why? The flap lever is in the 2 position. That's strange. Okay, let's recycle them. Flaps up and flaps 2. Now they're coming out again. Extending out here as well. And here they are again. Very strange. We need a huge amount of thrust here in order to be able to taxi the airplane. That really shouldn't be the case. The A330 is an aircraft that really taxis on idle all the way up to the maximum takeoff weight. Even at max takeoff weight, you don't need to add any thrust to get the aircraft moving unless you are going uphill. And look at that, the flaps have retracted again. I have no clue why that is. I really have no clue. This would already be the point where I would definitely go back to the gate and request maintenance to look over my aircraft. And just a small note here. The engines are really running up very high for taxi, even with just minor thrust input. So if I'm just doing like this, look at where the N1 goes. You aren't supposed to add more than 40%. So really hard to control the thrust there for taxi, apart from the fact that you shouldn't need any. And the flaps are in that strange position again. Okay, let me try something different. I'm gonna retract them like this, and now I will use my joystick to extend them. Let's see what happens this time. Okay, here they are in position 2 again. Let's see what's going to happen. So, they always say the A330 is an entry-level wide body because it just handles really, really well and rather similar to a narrow-body aircraft, even though it is, of course, a wide body. So, we need to apply some oversteering technique over here in order to get our aircraft to turn nicely. But you can be a little bit more generous with the A330 than with, for example, a Boeing 777. Okay, so let's add a little bit of power, and off we go to the holding point. Flight control check, and look at that, the flaps are retracting again. I really have no clue. Let's do it on the joystick again. We'll have to keep an eye on this during the takeoff. We'll definitely have to keep an eye on this. Okay, so flight control check. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Now comes the aileron. And if they simulated that correctly, the aileron will move quickly to up here and then take quite a bit of time to get to the full extended position. Let's try that now. So, full left. Nope, that's much too quick. Full right. Neutral. Okay, let's see if they simulate the tiller disconnect button. So, pedal disconnect, let's check the rudder. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Hard to find, but it works. Okay, I have no changes to the takeoff briefing. Everything stays exactly as we briefed it. Okay then, taxi checklist. By the way, look at how quickly it is losing speed. Absolutely shouldn't do that. I'm not on the brakes right now. There's no brake pedal input. Really shouldn't do that. Okay, taxi checklist. Flight controls, checked. Flap setting, conf 2. Radar and predictive wind shear, on and auto. Engine start selector, norm. ECAM memo. Takeoff, no blue. Taxi checklist complete. So the amount of thrust required to taxi is, no, just not right. What is quite realistic though, is that you can barely see the lights here on the EFIS control panel. Because that is something that I've kind of always struggled with in the Airbus. You're basically unable to read those lights, even at full brightness. You just gotta look at the displays. They are just not bright enough. Just looking at the plane from the outside, it's so cool to have an A330 finally. I really wish it was the same on the inside. So funnily enough, the real Airbus really is a hawk on the brake temperatures. You just gotta apply the brakes all the time to get your aircraft down to a decent speed. And well, over here you just gotta go idle thrust and it goes back down. Well, makes it easy I suppose. I don't think I've hit the brakes a single time during taxi yet. In the real world that is completely different. Okay, so clear on the approach. And clear on the left. You can just about see the wingtip, that is really nice. That's exactly what it is on the real plane as well. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. Nah, that click spot is a bit hard to reach there. Here we go. So, lineup checklist. Takeoff runway, 23 left full length. TCAS, TARA, PAX 1 and 2, off, lineup checklist complete. Right, let's try and do a proper lineup here. All the way across the center line, and here we go. Probably a little bit fast, but you just gotta enter the turn with that speed, otherwise the plane would come to a stop. Okay. So let's see, the flaps are still out. Looks like they stay out when I put my axis to the extended position. But just to show you something, if you look at this, the lines are not connecting properly. That's of course a bug. Okay. So, takeoff. Let's see. First flight in the Aerosoft Airbus A330. I am excited. Manflex 40, SS runway, A thrust blue. Thrust set. .100 knots. Checked. Oh, note the speed difference between the primary and the standby. V1, rotate. Positive climb, gear up. So 15 degrees pitch is what you need after takeoff. And something you will just notice in the A330 is that the airplane really loves to fly. The wing is built for the A340, which is quite a bit heavier, and that really shows in the flight dynamics of this aircraft. Thrust line climb, auto thrust. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Interesting, the lever doesn't move. while I'm moving my hardware. Okay, and flaps up. Well, that's another bug then. Okay, let's do autopilot on. We gotta get that aircraft under control. 1700 feet, we get the packs off. That is also wrong. That should come much later. So, pack 1 on. And pack 2 on. Okay, well, we're up and in the air. At last. So let's go ahead and continue our climb. We'll go for flight level 310, which is the file cruising level. So that's alt cruise 31,000 blue. Now this is something A330 specific. The alt cruise versus alt on the A320 series. The 330 gives you alt cruise in blue, because that is the mode that it will transition into, so makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, let's go ahead and monitor how the autopilot is going to fly the turn. We can see that there are no turns drawn on the ND down here. The real one, of course, has proper curves on the display. Alright, set standard. Standard cross-check, passing flight level 57 now. Checked. So let's see how it's going to handle that turn. Whether it'll try to re-intercept that line over here, or if it just goes direct to the waypoint. I have a feeling it's going to start to re-intercept. Yeah, looks like it. Well, let's see what it's going to do. We are just going to sit here and monitor. Something that I really don't understand is 10 years ago, when I've been working on the Aerosoft Airbus series, we got those turns fixed and we had proper lines. And now they present me an aircraft without lines. Why? Just why? Okay, you've got to start a left turn now, my friend. Otherwise you will be in trouble. Well, let's see what's gonna happen. If I was flying online, I would never let it do this. Okay, starting the left turn, but look at that. Delta Lima 241 is still the active waypoint. Oh, now it's sequenced. Huh, not supposed to be like that. Alright, passing 10,000. So, lights off, and I tend to say we can release our passengers as well. So, up to airports down here, and then we can do clear and copy, even though there is nothing to clear, and nothing to copy. Okay, optimum 384, cruise 310. Now this should not show 384. The A330 gives you the altitude in steps of 500s, not 100. So this should either be 380 or 385, but not 384. Something you will notice is that you've got recommended maximum of flight level 410, and that is actually what the A330 is capable of doing. It can go all the way to 410. Something that the A330 should not do is fly a managed speed of 253 knots. The climb speeds with Costa X10 are somewhere around, you know, 300 knots-ish. So 253 is much too slow. Let's change that. Let's go Costa X. Let's do 80. That's something we do rather often. Normally gives you 315 knots, not 277. Okay, this is bugged. This is completely botched, honestly. Something I want to try though. If we go CI 100, well, let's make it CI 800. See what's gonna happen then. Yeah, 320. That looks more like it. I have a feeling they went for a 4-digit cost index system. Let's try 9,999. Okay, entry out of range. Let's do 5,000. Out of range. Interesting. Okay, I don't get how that works, but the target speeds are definitely incorrect. Okay then, let's take a little shortcut. Let's fly direct to Bombi. There you go, Bombi direct insert. Nav. Even though the box should not come up, should just have stayed on nav. The mode was active already, so why bring up the node? So, auto tank transfer in progress. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's looking fine. But look at that, it is completely overshooting the turn. Looks like it drew a straight line from the direct point. Yeah, here you have it, from the turn point to the waypoint. Now it's re-intercepting that line. Not supposed to be like that, it's supposed to draw a nice turn and then go directly to that waypoint. At least in theory it should. Well, let's monitor what it's gonna do. Because this seems very aggressive here. Okay, turning back into the right direction. Suppose that's gonna be fine. As long as it doesn't overshoot. But yeah, it's not meant to do that. It's meant to draw a turn and then send you to that waypoint. So, here's a funny little story. If you... Did the table not fold out properly? No, it just froze up? Huh. Let's stow that, get that out again. For real? They botched up the table animation? Aerosoft. In any case, here's a fun little story. If you look at the checklists that you have up here, those are, I believe, the old Air Berlin checklists, but when I say old, I mean old. As in 2010 roundabout. And ever since, pretty much any airline has just reverted to the standard Airbus checklists. We used to have those on the Aerosoft Airbus Extended back in the day, but those should long have been removed from the aircraft and either be replaced by the standard Airbus checklists, but the way crews are dealing with those nowadays is that they have them completely on their electronic flight bag, so there is nothing to bother with in terms of the there's nothing to bother with in terms of the paper charts anymore. Okay, well. So we're on the way. The aircraft is flying nicely. Something to note here is that it's climbing pretty quickly. Now, of course we're at a very light weight here, 166 tons, so this kinda makes sense. And we don't have any climb derate. But, if we look at this, for some reason it still gives us the thrust limit as flex rather than climb. So, down here it is in the climb detent, so I have no clue what it's doing now. Let's experiment with that. Let's go up to flex MCT. Yeah, you should not have come back to flex. And let's go back to climb thrust. So that thrust limit up here seems to be bugged. We do have thrust climb over here though, so... Problem is just I have no idea whether this is the actual climb rating or whether this is the actual flex rating. In any case, it is climbing at a rather good vertical speed over here. The real one climbs fairly slow. Even if you go full climb thrust and don't use any of the climb derate, you are normally, if you're at a, you know, normal takeoff weight like 220, 230 tons, it will normally take about 25 minutes to reach its cruising altitude. And the initial cruising altitudes are normally somewhere in the range of approximately, say, flight level 360, 370 roundabout. So the 330 flies really high, even the 300. The 200 even more so. On some occasions I had an initial cruising level of flight level 390, even when crossing the North Atlantic on like an 8-hour flight. So that stuff does happen. Now the Neo is even better there, have to add that one as well. The Neo is even better. But the Neo has a, let's say, wing that is constructed for the type. The wing that we have underneath the A330 200 and 300 basically is a wing constructed for the Airbus A340. And that one has a max takeoff weight that is about 40 tons larger. And, well, that one still gets you up to level 340, 350-ish initially. So, some pretty good climb performance on those Airbus types. They do take long to get up to cruise level, but once they're up, they are flying really high. By the way, interesting top of climb over here. I severely doubt that we'll be able to reach flight level 310 in the next 3 miles. Ah well, I'm not gonna bother with that stuff. Okay. So we are slowly getting up to the higher levels. It's quite bright outside. Let's go ahead and get those sunshades down. I have to admit, though, that the way you're extending and retracting them, look at that. It's so slow. In the real world, you just pull it out. Takes a moment, then it's there. Likewise for the one in the middle here. I wonder if we can turn this one, because we're turning this quite a lot. Then let's get the third one down as well. And here we go. So look at this, we've actually passed the top of climb, and we are still climbing. Very interesting, definitely not supposed to be like this. That top of descent seems a little bit far-fetched for my taste. The A330 really is a glider, and not just because a certain Canadian airline has taken that literal and glided it down to Lajes, but also because, you know, a normal aircraft is calculated at needing about 3 nautical miles to lose 1,000 feet altitude. For the A330 we assume 4 nautical miles, because it just glides that well. Just while I'm looking at it, what's going on with the cabin pressurization here? Cabin altitude, minus 50. Differential pressure, 10.1. Nope. Not supposed to happen like that. So the rate of climb is slowly coming back. But since we're at such a light weight, 1,000 feet a minute up here is really good. If you do a proper long distance flight at high weights, you are going to be somewhere around 500, 600 feet a minute. So the plane really doesn't climb very well. But then again, once it's up, flies really well. You have a huge margin on your speed indication to both the top and the bottom. Normal cruising speeds are in the region of about Mach 0.81 in the COs, 0.82 in the Neo, and well, it does go up to 8.6, even though the plane is not really capable of flying that. It normally ends up at about 8.4 with maximum continuous thrust, and you will not be able to push it into the overspeed without any external influences. Okay, so about to level off. Mach Alt Cruise Star. Top of descent reached. I doubt it. The top of descent is over here, even though that is definitely wrong. But we'll deal with that in a few moments. Let's just monitor the level off over here. Alt cruise. Okay. Well, that discontinuity down here is interesting. Not sure why that's in there. And especially why the line is still drawn over here then. If there's a disco over there, it should just have gone away. Okay, well, let's clear that. And then Delta Kilo Bravo is normally at flight level 250 on this route, so let's go ahead and enter that. Enter that. Or not. Okay, well, first of all, let's go back to standard flight here. Let's do cost index 10. We should get Mach 80, Mach 81 roundabout. 7, 2. 253 knots. No. Okay, what does cost index 80 give us? 81. Well, we'll take that. But the cost index scale definitely seems off to me. But wait. Managed? 0.81. What is the active mode? It's in cruise mode. Managed 0.81. Why is the target speed somewhere far, far below? Okay. 0.81 selected. I have a feeling it's botched up due to the descent, but over here you can see it's in cruise phase as well, so why did it tell us that it's reached the top of descent? And why is it showing us the green dot over here then? That doesn't make any sense. Let's just re-enter the cruising altitude, maybe that helps. New cruise out 31,000. Okay. So let's try one more time to insert that level 250. So let's do it over the vertical revision this time. Alt constraint. No, not 250. Flight level 250, here we go. Nothing. Top of descent should be somewhere over here now. You can't see it, but I'm shaking my head right now. I should probably install a camera. So, let's just try around a little bit. Step alts, not implemented. Constant Mach, not implemented. Wind data, not implemented. I do believe that offset is not implemented as well. Yep. How about holdings? Nope. Fix info? Nope. Alright. In other words, nothing except for flying the standard route from A to B. None of all those features that we're using on the long hauls is actually implemented. That's... I don't know what to say about it, really. Reminds me of the Flight Sim Studio Embraer, but this airplane, when Matthias Koch left, the Flight Sim Studios guys took over managing this one. It's the same manager between the A330 and the Flight Sim Studio E-Jets. So, I guess we get what we paid for. Okay, well, then let's just set it up for the approach. So, we'll have to do the vertical navigation manually. I mean, look at that. This is ridiculous. Can we do anything down here, like roadkill level 100? Is that maybe gonna do something? No. By the way, very interesting theory down there. Roadkill in flight level 217, Delta Mike 412, 32 miles later, flight level 50. Tell me how the aircraft wants to make that descent. 16,700 feet in 32 nautical miles. I can tell you that much, an A330 can't do that. Alright, I'm gonna ignore the radio nav page here. Let's start inserting our landing data. So, Munich 08 left in here. For the descent, yeah, no. 0.81 slash, let's make it 300. Format error, no, it's not. 0.81/300 is exactly how you enter this. Okay then, onto the approach page. Let's see if we can at least grab some weather data. So, 0 at 4, 21 degrees, 1008. Alright, let's get the approach charts. So, start adding charts. We don't need Düsseldorf anymore, but we need Munich now. Hello? Munich? No? Well, looks like the Navigraph charts have stopped working. Why? Just why? Couldn't they have botched up a Dash 8 Q400? Why does it have to be the A330 that they messed up? Okay. So we'll do it without charts. I do believe the minimum is 1690, but I don't really know. We are going to do config 3 landing, since that is what we do 99% of the time. And in case of missed approach, single engine acceleration 3700. Fuel prediction page isn't working either, it seems. Nope. Okay. Neither is the secondary, so that's pretty much all we could do for the setup. We'll use auto brakes low, and that should pretty much be it. Alright, let's go ahead and start our descent. We'll take flight level 250 at Delta Kilo Bravo. So, first I'll open descent, alt, flight level 250 blue. Let's go managed over here, see what's gonna happen. 0.53, 303. Makes no sense to me. Okay, let's go selected. 0.81. That is better. And actually we can just transition over to 300 over here. That's it. Set managed speed. No. Okay, well, so that is that part. Let's go ahead and turn those seatbelts on. And we can turn the heaters off, don't need them. Even though they are a pretty cool system, but we just don't need them right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the approach briefing, please. Alright, we have an MSA at 3,700 feet, and we're going to fly the radar vectored arrival for an ILS approach onto runway 08 left. Minimum's 1,690 and the go-around straight ahead to 1 DME to the east of Delta Mike November, or 1,900, whichever is later. Left turn direct Mike in near Quebec, climbing 5,000 to hold. Extra fuel and time, well, a little bit, even though we don't get any specific numbers over here. Alright, so this is going to be manual approach, flight directors on, auto thrust off, and we are going to use config 3 for the landing. Maximum reverse, auto brakes low, vacating the runway to the right hand side. We don't have any specials for our taxi in, no hotspots, and that's pretty much it. Do you see any threats? No? Beautiful, so that's our briefing completed. Alright, so I'm off to talk to the passengers. And in the meantime, engine anti-ice on. So, engine anti-ice. No click spot down here, unfortunately. Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. We've started our descent towards Munich with a remaining flight time of about 20 minutes. The weather in Munich is good at a temperature of 21 degrees and a few clouds at the sky. We'd like to thank you very much for choosing Air Berlin for today's flight. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we look forward to welcoming you all again on board of a future flight. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren aus dem Cockpit, hier Kapitän. Wir haben den Sinkflug Richtung München begonnen und die verbleibende Flugzeit beträgt jetzt noch etwa 20 Minuten. Das Wetter in München aktuell 21 Grad bei weitestgehend klarem Himmel. Wir bedanken uns herzlich, dass Sie unsere Gäste waren, wünschen Ihnen einen schönen Aufenthalt, gegebenenfalls eine gute und sichere Weiterreise und würden uns freuen, Sie bald wieder an Bord eines unserer Flugzeuge willkommen zu heißen. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Okay, I'm back. TCAS on to below, even though we don't use AI traffic today. And engine anti-ice off. No, anti-ice, ice detected. This should be level 2 warning though, it should have given us the chime. But then we can just turn it back on again. The nice thing about the real A330, I didn't expect Aerosoft to actually model that, but the nice thing about the real A330 is basically once you leave the icing conditions, like we have right now, you basically only need to monitor your ECAM, and at some point it will say ice not detected. And when it does that, that's your point where you can turn the engine anti-ice off. Otherwise, if you have a status like this, so you've got the engine anti-ice memo, but you don't have anything about the ice not being detected, if you turn them off, you are gonna get an ECAM warning saying ice detected, please turn on my anti-ice. I have to admit, from the outside, it's just such a good looking aircraft. During my childhood, the A330 kinda was the aircraft. So whenever you imagined an aircraft, for me it was the A330. So I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to fly one now. Unfortunately, I'm not so glad about the Aerosoft one, so I do hope that with the upcoming Flight Simulator 24, Indie Builds will have produced a proper and decent Airbus A330. Alright. It's just a marvelous plane to look at though, isn't it? When you get close up, the Aerosoft model isn't all that great. We can just go ahead and have a little look there. Let's go over to the drone cam for now, and let's just get close up. So as you can see, if you're looking at the aircraft from a proper distance, the model is looking really good, there is no doubt about it. But once we are getting really close up, you can see how things are becoming rather blurry down here. This is one of the standard liveries that Aerosoft have delivered with the aircraft, so I would expect this to be the highest possible quality. Something you might have noticed that is not a bug but a feature is how the leading edge of the inboard slat does not align with the wing root down here. That is not a bug, that is indeed a feature, even though it is one that I really wonder why Airbus built the aircraft that way. But the real one has the same misalignment over here as the simulated one. Going down along the model, this is what it looks like. In my opinion, it does look fairly good. So remember that in the real aircraft you barely get closer than this. So this is roughly what it looks like during the walk around as well. And seen from this distance, the wing does look fairly good, so I'm not gonna complain about that. Something I will complain about though is that little hole that you have down here. Inside this you gotta be able to see a white cross. If that is not visible, that means that something is wrong with the fuel tank's ventilation system, and that aircraft is not gonna go anywhere. Now, something that some of you have pointed out is the quality of the virtual cabin, and that is really something that I just want to show you for a moment here. As you can see, if we're going inside the aircraft, this is what it looks like. So there is really no high quality cabin in there. This does follow the same philosophy that Aerosoft used, you know, like 6 or 7 years ago when they produced their Airbuses for P3D. And I have to admit that as long as you're not entering the cabin, as long as you're only looking from the outside, this is actually not all too bad, you know. In the Phoenix I don't see any more than what I see over here from the outside as well, but in the day and age of Microsoft Flight Simulator, you really should produce somewhat of a better cabin, don't you? At least I most definitely believe you do. Well, that's really all I can say about the outside model of the Aerosoft A330. If seen from, you know, a proper distance, it does look good. And I have to admit that the A330 is just a beautiful airplane over here. But when you're getting close up, then you are losing quite an amount of detail, which is something that I do surely hope they are going to correct with future updates to the aircraft. But we'll have to see where the update cycle is going to go. After all, they have priced the aircraft at quite an entry-level price point there, at about 30 euros for the A330-300 with the Pratt & Whitney engines. So I'm somewhat not expecting them to produce any, you know, let's say to produce any exceptional quality cabin, like what we've seen with the Phoenix or with the iFlight 737 MAX. Well, nonetheless, that's my impression over here. As long as you just use it, you know, like most of the users are gonna use it, looking at it from a decent distance, it does look fairly good. If you are going inside, however, then, well, no need to comment on that, just don't go inside. Alright, we've covered quite a bit of distance here, so let's go ahead and initiate our further descent. Down to flight level 100, here we go. And I will just go ahead and pull that speed brake. Let's get that airplane down. What is that? Flight control. Speed brake still out. No, the speed brake is meant to be out, my friend. It's not still out. Okay, clear flight controls. So as you can see, fairly good rate of descent if you are flying it in the high-speed regime. In the low speed, however, that changes significantly. I'm going to demonstrate this now. Let's go ahead and make a right-hand turn on the heading 180. Hello? I want to dial in a heading, but I can't. What happens if I go to heading mode? Okay, heading. Now it works. Very strange. That is not how the real Airbus works, of course. So, the final approach fix is in about 15 miles. Well, we're gonna lose quite a bit of altitude here. I might just have to overshoot a little bit. Perhaps just turn it onto downward heading for a few moments. Let's make that 260 and then we are gonna come back. I spent a little bit more time on the outside view than I originally intended. Okay, let's stow those window shades. By the way, if they want to add a little bit more detail, then you would put a lot of fingerprints on those window shades over here. Because those really get touched all over. It still doesn't say ice not detected, but let me try to turn the anti-ice off nonetheless. Okay, no ECAM caution. That's strange. Not how the airplane is supposed to work, but okay. And here we go. Okay, so let's just bring the airplane down to a decent flight level here, like flight level 100, and then we'll try to do a little bit of exercises and a little bit of maneuvering. The A330, as I mentioned, really is a glider. And I don't mean that literal like certain Canadian colleagues did, but I mean it in a way that the airplane just really glides and glides and glides. And we are going to give that a try. So let's go ahead and stow those speed brakes. Interesting, it automatically arms when I retract it. Not supposed to happen, of course. Likewise, I have no idea what that top of descent is, but well. So once it's stabilized at 300 knots, we will see a rate of descent that is not going to be excessive. Let's bring it back towards 250 over here. So that deceleration is going to take a little while now. At the same time, let's do a radial indirect to Margat. Margat radial in 260. Insert. No nav intercept. That's intentional. Why is Rokill still the active waypoint? Something tells me the radial indirect is not modeled. Okay, I tell you what. Let's just do a normal direct to Margat. Here we go. Why Xerum? Hello, airplane? Margat, final fix. Okay, I have no idea what this thing is doing. Likewise, I have no idea why there's a discontinuity over here. Remove that, please. That's what it should look like. And I have no idea why the plane is doing a right-hand turn. Okay, I don't care. Let's do a left-hand turn. Back towards the ILS, heading 110. And I have no clue why the turn point is the active inbound waypoint. Oh boy, this is bad. This is really bad. Okay, so we have about 30 miles to go until Margat. 9,000 feet to lose, 20 knots tailwind. If they modeled the drag of the A330 correctly, you can be absolutely sure this thing is not going to make it down to Margat. We will be high on that profile. In any case, let's find out. So, 5,000. So, set QNH. QNH 1008, cross-check, passing 13,100. Now. Okay, anti-ice, ice detected. Alright, engine anti-ice on. Okay, so this is the A330. 250 knots, idle thrust, around level 100, you're descending at 1,000 feet a minute. That's exactly what the airplane does. So you will really have to stay on top of it and manage your vertical speed correctly. The good thing is the plane has a very effective speed brake. So you can just go speed brakes out, and when you do that, the rate of descent is going to double. So you are easily getting 2,500 feet a minute out of the aircraft. Let's turn that anti-ice off again. So let's wait until it has stabilized. Here we go. 2,000, just above 2,000 feet a minute. And that's exactly what the airplane should do. Alright, let's fly direct to the final approach fix here. Direct, Margat, insert. Why is Bombi the inbound waypoint? Oh boy, this is messed up. I don't even want to know where the plane is going to fly. Okay. Radar vectors all the way then. Okay, so that's this stuff. Then let's do the approach checklist, please. Barrel ref, QNH 1008, seatbelts on, minimum, barrel 1690, auto brake, off, low, and engine start selector, norm. Approach checklist complete. Okay, so 15 miles to go to Margat, passing 8,000, that's looking rather good. Let's go ahead and turn a little bit further to the left here, make it 070. Knowing Microsoft Flight Simulator, we'll probably get in range for the ILS about 25 miles away from the airport. So we're at 27 right now, so it should come in range any moment. This time I did update the IRAC cycle to the latest one, so unlike yesterday's video on the iFly 737 MAX, where we could not receive any ILS, which was purely down to the Navigraph problem, not to the iFly aircraft, this time it should work. And indeed it does. So, ILS Munich Northeast, and we have localizer alive. Lock blue. Okay, so speed brake back in. And you should not arm. Now let's see, we have about 12 nautical miles to Margat. We need to lose 1,300 feet. So this is going to take like 5 or 6 miles. With that wind, probably 6 miles. And then we'll have to lose our airspeed. In other words, we'll probably be right down on speed just about when we reach Margat. And that's about as good as the A330 glides. 1,000 to go. Okay, activate approach phase. And now let's see how this is going to work out. I will take over manually. Because I do want to get a little bit of hands-on flying with the Aerosoft. Hey, what's my... Why is it going to Toga? Hello? You're an idle. What on earth is it doing? Let's try that again. Now it works. Come on. Silence. Hello? You should be able to silence that altitude warning by just pressing the... Are we really stuck with this now? Okay, let's try autopilot on again. And off again. Alright. This was weird. I mean, it's a good idea that they start implementing the altitude warning, but, you know, do it right. Okay, manage speed. The glide slope is alive already. I will have to help it here. Full speed brakes, otherwise we're not going to get it slow again. Especially not with the 13 knot tailwind. Retract speed brake. Nope, I disagree with you. Certainly not going to do that. We got to get it slow. If we intercept the glide slope without the flaps, we can forget the approach. Okay, flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Glide slope star, go around altitude 5000 set. Glide slope. Alright, with that tailwind, the speed brake is not going to be sufficient to get us to reduce the speed. Look at that. If we're established on the glide slope, this is with full speed brake right now, as you can see down here as well, and flaps 1, no way to slow the airplane down. So there's only one solution. Gear down. And you will find yourself dropping the landing gear a lot in the A330. Because without it, you basically can't slow the aircraft down. And that's not a bug, that's a feature. Now with the gear down, we will slowly get hold of our speed control. Okay, why did it go back into lock star? Not supposed to do that.
2,500.
Checked. So this is landing gear down, full speed brake. And here's the next caveat. You can see that the sign indicating your flap speed limit for the flaps 2 configuration is at 205 knots. But if you look up here, you can see flaps 2 is actually 196. That's not a bug, that's a feature. Okay, flaps 2. And then let's go ahead and arm those speed brakes. So you can see it first gives you that speed, but as the flaps extend into the 2 position, then it comes down to 196. That's a really nice gotcha on the A330. You can really mess yourself over with that. So, flaps 3. Landing checklist, econ memo, landing no blue, landing checklist complete. So we should have a pitch of just shy of 5 degrees on the final. And you can again really see how the speed struggles to get back. And that is normal for the A330. That is very normal. The landing gate is at 1,000 feet though. Alright, here we go. So just about reaching the gate. And the speed. And that's it. So 5 degrees of pitch works really well. Checked. Did we turn the lights on? Yeah, perfect. Now I haven't flown A330s with Pratt engines. I've flown them with Rolls-Royce though, and the Rolls-Royce need about 46% N1 on the final. So anything that's probably a little bit higher on the Pratt engine wouldn't surprise me at all. So let's make sure we are stabilized here. That's looking pretty good. 63% N1. Well, I can't really tell you if that's alright for the Pratt engines, but it's not excessive, let's call it like that. Alright, so, land. And now comes landing the A330, which is landing 3 times. So, at 100 feet you go into flare law, which is more or less direct law. And continue. And then first you touch down with the aft part of the boogie. Down here, then you land the forward boogie, and then you land the nose wheel, and you gotta do all 3 separately.
40.
Okay.
30,
Idle.
20
Flare.
5.
Oh, what is it doing? It's catapulting me into the air.
5.
Okay, just get it down. Whoa. It is trying to pull to the side. So, spoilers, reverse green, decel. What is that speed doing? Why did the speed just... Okay, manual brakes. This is maximum manual. Barely slows down. What on earth is going on there? Maximum reverse, maximum manual, we are barely losing any speed. Okay. This is not supposed to happen. Now look at that. We're accelerating. We are accelerating. In maximum reverse. Only when I add manual brakes again, the thing starts to slow down. Alright, that was awful. That landing behavior of the plane. You saw me land this, right? This was not me botching up anything. That was just awful. Alright, so I suppose welcome to Munich, everyone? No further comment, though. Well, here we are. Now let's go ahead and taxi the aircraft to the gate. And while we are taxiing to the gate, What is making that sound? I have no clue. I suppose I don't even want to know. Because if I did, I would probably just get mad at it. Again, look at how much thrust we are using just to maintain the speed. Not supposed to be like that. I'm somewhat tempted to try single engine taxi, but I have a feeling it's gonna go very wrong. Well, anyway, after landing checklist, radar and predictive wind shear off, after landing checklist complete. Alright, so welcome to Munich, everyone. Now, let's go ahead and do our after landing feedback. And I tried to stay as positive as possible during this entire video, but as a matter of fact, this is not very good. Not very good at all. So, if you want to see an example of a pre-release, or probably just about release, copy of an aircraft that is well done and where everything is in a way that I would expect it to be, have a look at my video on the iFly 737 MAX, cause that one is really in a good shape for a pre-release copy. Now this one here is released, and well, unfortunately it is not in a shape where I would expect it to be. And something that I really don't understand is the Aerosoft A330 on prepared was an enjoyable and mostly working, well done aircraft. It was a well done aircraft overall. Why did they not just copy and paste the stuff they had for the P3D Airbus into the MSFS Airbus? Because over here, as you saw, basically nothing works. Now, I have no idea if it is related, but I talked to quite a couple of persons who are involved with the Aerosoft Airbus, who know what's going on behind the scenes, or rather, who is going on behind the scenes. And I know that the manager for the A330, after Matthias went away, is the same manager who also did the Flight Sim Studio E-Jets. And we all remember that release catastrophe, right? And I have a feeling that he stepped right into those steps and brought the A330 out like that as well. Now, I can only guess about the reasons. We have to give them credit that they've been upfront from the beginning on. The product page kinda suggests what the aircraft is about, so at least people know before they do actually buy the aircraft. But if we're honest, it should not be released in a state like this. We can only speculate as to why they have released it like this, and my personal speculation here is that they knew that the InniBuild A330 is coming by default with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And I guess that this meant they simply had to release no matter what, because I guess that the InniBuilds in FS24 is going to be better than this, and therefore I guess that they knew they would not be able to make any money out of this at all anymore if they did not release it right now. So for anyone who's asking whether you should give this a try or not, my honest feedback is, if you're interested in getting Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, I would strongly recommend that you wait until FS24 is released and have a look at the default Airbuses there first. I'm kinda hoping that since it is InniBuilds doing them, the default Airbuses on FS24 are going to be similar to the default A320neo V2 that we have gotten in MSFS right now. And if it is indeed going to be similar, then it is going to be in a much better shape than the Aerosoft A330 is right now. We'll have to see into what kind of product Aerosoft is going to transform this. Personally, I don't have very high hopes because, let's be honest over here, the Aerosoft A330 has released for about 30 euros, so it came out in the low price segment. Similar to, for example, the Captain'sm aircraft. 10 euros more, but what we get for those 10 euros more is somewhat visible, but let's face it, not very impressive. Well, and that is my beloved Airbus A330. As I mentioned on the intro for this video, I have to admit this kind of hurts. Those aircraft over here, the ones of which the previous work went into creating this particular one over here, were the ones that actually paid for my ATPL training. And seeing what this has evolved into now is somewhat frustrating. Because they have been so much better in P3D. The P3D A330 was good. Of course not study level, but it wasn't aimed to be. But when you're looking at this, then, well, what can I say? It's frustrating, to say the least. Alright, so the APU is running. Shut down engine 2. I want to see single engine taxi, just for the sake of completeness, because single engine taxi is a standard procedure that you do on every A330 flight. It's really something we do all the time. But look at this. We need 47% N1 on the live engine to just maintain our speed? That is not right. Let's go to idle here for a moment. So, gate 113, we'll take the center line. Actually, we'll take the alpha line. No, this is not correct. This is not how an A330 behaves on single engine taxi. As mentioned, we do it all the time in the real world, but I suppose it falls into the general taxi problems this aircraft has. The idle thrust is just not high enough, and this probably leads to the deceleration that we see here on the remaining engine. So I suppose there's a lot of work coming up for Aerosoft on this A330. Well, it hurts to actually call it an A330 because it doesn't really behave like one. It looks like one. But that's about it. Okay, here we are. APU bleed on. Engines off. Cabin crew, all doors in park. So, the slides are disarmed. We'll just wait for the engines to run down. Okay, parking checklist. Parking brake set, engines off, fuel pumps off, parking checklist complete. So if you just skipped forward to this part of the video, just go back to our taxi in, please. That is where I gave my verdict on the aircraft, but overall I can really just summarize that it's looking okay, as long as you don't go into the cabin, but for the rest of it, this really needs some improvement. So would I recommend anyone to buy the Aerosoft A330 at the moment? Well, in light of the release, or of the upcoming release of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, I would probably recommend you to refrain from getting the Aerosoft Airbus. As much as you would love to have an A330, wait until FS24. That one's gonna have a default A330 by INI builds, which is probably gonna be much better than this is in its current shape. So unfortunately, the long tradition of Microsoft Flight Simulator airliners releasing with less than what I would even consider a beta version shape is continued over here, and that's the only feedback I can leave you with over here. Nonetheless, with all of that said, I really just want to emphasize again that there is no bad blood between Aerosoft and me from my side over here. I'm really grateful how they enabled me to pay for my ATPL training by working for them for several years. So once again, I can only say thank you very much, Aerosoft, for anything that you have enabled me to get to. I would not be in this position without you. But please, don't just abandon the A330 over here. If you're selling it like this, do turn it into something that deserves to be called an Airbus A330. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.